What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast. I am Jimmy Durkin. We'll be joined soon by Vic Tafur as we commiserate another Raiders loss. This one really deflating for the Raiders. A 34-3 loss at Levi Stadium to the hands of the San Francisco 49ers in the final Battle of the Bay. A game that, there's really no excuses to be made about it. The Niners simply outplayed them using a third-string quarterback, undrafted, a guy that had never taken a snap in an NFL game before today, and he dominated them, 34-3. The Raiders, a promising start to the game. They were able to move down the field. Looked like maybe, the Niners defense looked terrible. Looked like the Raiders might be able to go down and score a quick touchdown, and they were bogged down by some penalties, and then Colton Miller tweaked his knee again, had to go out of the game for a little while. Did come back at one point and then left again, and suddenly they had to settle for a field goal, and then from there the Niners were off and running. 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives for Nick Mullens. A Pierre Garçon just got wide open on a busted coverage by Reggie Nelson. He got fooled in man coverage and got sucked up by a play action, and just really a disappointing performance if you're the Raiders. And, I think obviously the way the season is going, this was maybe one game you could point to, hey, at least we can try to beat the Niners and have some semblance of bragging rights, but it didn't happen. And before we get to Vic, he's writing a story right now. I want to play a little bit of our post-game audio. We have Jon Gruden, first off, talking about the team's effort, and, well, really not talking about the team's effort, not really ready to make any definitive statements or answer any questions about the effort that he saw on Thursday night.
I don't think so. I'm not going to say anything about the effort. I know there were some big plays, and I thought the guys fought until the end. We were offensively, I know we were depleted up front, had some guys playing out of position. Defensively, I thought they hung in there under some dire situations late in the game, but I'll take a look at the tape.
And then, of course, obviously Gruden was going to be asked about, what he had to say to Howie Long in that interview that everybody's heard about now, where he talked about how, there's a lot of players calling him and texting him about wanting to be a Raider, wanting to come to this team. Obviously, he's hearing how, this is, he's turning this into a place that's not desirable, and that was kind of his counter to that. Well, he amended himself a little bit tonight. He said it was more, players come up to me after the game, and, but overall his message is he's trying to get people excited about this team.
I see players after every game we play that, want to be Raiders. That's been the case my whole life. And I think the brand of the Raiders is an exciting one, and I think a lot of players, no doubt, do want to play for us in the future. And I'm not going to speculate any further than that. I'm not going to get into who calls me and who texts me. I've made a lot of friends in this business over the years. Well, I'm just trying to get people excited about the Oakland Raiders. The Oakland Raiders is a great organization. I know it's not looking pretty right now, but I've heard a lot of negativity, over the last 6 or 7 months, and rightfully so. But we're going to build a championship football team here, and I know a lot of people, as players, as fans, and just in general, want to be a part of this.
One name certainly that's come under fire now a little bit is Paul Guenther, the defensive coordinator. You see the way this Raiders defense is playing, and I think there was a lot of hope that Paul Guenther was a guy that was going to be able to transform this into a competitive defense, a defense that maybe even with less talent. Obviously, we know who they got rid of from this defense. With less talent, might be able to get more out of this defense. Obviously, that's not what we've seen. And another night tonight where they really looked bad, and a lot of blown coverage, a lot of guys just missing plays, missing tackles, miscommunication, all that. And so Gruden was asked, does Paul Guenther have enough weapons out there?
I'm not going to get into all that tonight. Obviously, we hope to get Vanderdoes and Ellis back to help us inside. We'll take a look at it, but we just got to play better. We got to play a lot better than we are right now.
One of the other big questions surrounding this team is where do they go from here? How do they kind of salvage the rest of the season? What do they need to do here, to feel like they've accomplished something? And it's a pretty simple answer from Jon Gruden. He wants to see the team get healthy. They've been beat up, but a lot of teams in the NFL are beat up. He knows that can't be an excuse, but still, that's what he's looking for the final 8 games.
Well, obviously, we've got to take a good look at health of our football team. We got to get some guys on the offensive line that are healthy, that can do the things that we need to do to allow our offense to function and do some of the things that we want to be good at. That'll be something we look at here over the weekend. Secondly, we've got to find a way to stop the run. We've got to continue to develop our young players, and that's something that we're going to continue to do.
And on to Derek Carr now, and a similar question for him. I asked him, what is the goal for the final 8 games of the season? What do you want to see? And I thought it was a pretty good answer from him. I think this answer, if you kind of read between the lines, he's not only saying that he wants to see who is going to fight. He's kind of acknowledging that there are guys out there that really aren't wanting to fight. And so I think this was a pretty good answer from Carr. I know people compound him sometimes for not really saying a whole lot, and this is maybe him not quite going all the way there, but he kind of went part of the way there of acknowledging that there are guys out there that maybe aren't really into this whole thing, really wanting to do this, really wanting to be a part of this team. And so he wants to see over the final 8 games who does want to be a part of this team.
I think that just that dog inside of you when things suck, just to still fight. I know a group of guys. I got some guys that I'd want to put in a foxhole with me. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of them, and so we got to make sure going forward. When I look at each man in the eye, I tell them before the game, you're going to get everything that I have. I yell at our guys, you're going to get everything I got. That's not a thing. And I want to make sure when I look in everybody's eyes, that's the same thing. I think going forward, we build that trust and see who really wants to be a part of this. You see who really wants to be here, who really wants to turn this thing around, who really wants to do the hard things that nobody else wants to do. It's easy to say, I'll go do it somewhere else. That's easy. I think we figure that out. And I think that going forward, we find out who's a Raider, honestly, because I love this place and I'm not going anywhere. So, I'm in it for the long haul, and I want to be here, and I want to see the men step up and say, I want to do that too. And just listen to some of our vets talk, man, it encouraged me a lot. I'm not going to lie. I didn't say a word when we came in after the game, and I just listened. And we got some of those guys.
Another big theme of his post-game press conference was the idea of doubt. And, does this team start to doubt itself? Obviously, when you hit 1-7, when you hit a skid like this, it's natural. And, I think Derek Carr certainly didn't like hearing that word. It's not something that he feels is anything going on with him, certainly, and doesn't sense it with his team. But it's a fair question to ask because, hey, at 1-7, obviously with everything that's gone on this year, it's natural for players to start doubting themselves and start doubting this team and start doubting how much they want to be a part of it.
No doubt, right? There's still 8 games, and you got to hope that Coach and Mr. McKenzie have brought in the right people, because everyone's human. When you go through hard things, especially nowadays, a lot of people just give up. But I think that I believe that just talking to our guys, talking to our leaders. I mean, no one's given up, no one's given in. I think something I just kept saying was we still got to compete as men. We're down 30 in the fourth quarter, and we still got to compete. You still got to give it your all. And I think that as we continue to go forward, that's all we can do. We can't control the outcome in certain aspects of our lives, but when it comes to football, you can prepare your tail off, and you can go out there and compete your tail off also. So I think that we have the right group of guys, and it's going to be up to the older guys to show the young guys what it looks like. No, I see where you're trying to go with the doubt thing, and I'm not someone that doubts anything. You know that. We've been around each other a long time, and the guys that we have around us, we watch the film, and everyone, Coach Gruden is open about all the mistakes. You know what I mean? When we all sit in the same room together as collectively, and we all see, hey, this needs to be better, that needs to be better, this needs to be better, and so we all see it, and so that way there's no other voice saying, but if he would have done this or if he would have done that. It's up there on the screen for everybody to see. So I say it that way because every man sitting in that chair knows and is accountable in front of everyone. Yeah, I should have done better.
All right, and now we are going to make this a little bit of a duo podcast as we bring on David Lombardi, one of our 49ers writers and one of the hosts of the No Breaks 49ers podcast. And David, from your perspective, I mean, this was just a weird game. Obviously, Nick Mullens getting the start and comes out and dominates, really. How surprised were you to see the way he was able to play?
Well, when you looked at the Raiders' numbers this year, they were pretty ugly. In fact, they were giving up, 8.8 yards per attempt, which means that they were making the collective opposition as efficient as Patrick Mahomes, who's at 8.9 yards per attempt this season. So I had an inkling that Mullens would look good today just because he was playing against a team that didn't have a pass rush. The Raiders are last in the league in that regard, and also really didn't have a secondary. But he even blew those expectations out of the water. He was at, 13 yards per attempt, which is, I think, the highest in the NFL this season in any game. That's crazy. And that's indicative of how the Raiders quit, I think, in this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable performance. I mean, if you're Nick Mullens, I mean, if you're picking a team, picking a situation to have your NFL debut, there's really no better than this. I mean, you've got a defense that didn't have any time to get ready for you, really. Nobody practiced this week on either side. Neither of these teams really practiced. And, okay, you just get to go out there and play. Really, I mean, this is the worst defense in the league. It's the worst team in the league. I mean, these were, in my opinion, the two worst teams in the league. I know in our power rankings, I was a little bit I guess I was not really surprised that the Niners were 32. They probably deserved to be there because the Cardinals are really, really bad, and they lost to the Cardinals twice. But these were the two worst teams in the league, I think pretty unquestionably. And now we know the Raiders will be falling to number 32 officially again, and that's where they belong.
And they're in the lead for that top draft pick. I mean, if you looked at all the Football Outsiders numbers, the Niners were heavy favorites after losing to the Cardinals. But I think what you saw this week and the numbers that will be put on the record this week with the 49ers dominating this game, the trajectories of both teams, I think the Raiders now unquestionably have that number 32 spot. I mean, the stat test,
they can
everything.
really lock it up when they go to Arizona in a few weeks.
Yeah.
If they can go out and do the lose to Arizona thing like the Niners have become experts at, then they can really lock it up. And I mean, it will make the 2019 draft pretty interesting. I know Vic is already angling because the Raiders are going to have obviously 3 first-round picks, potentially the number 1 pick, and it's in our favorite road town, Nashville. So Vic's already angling to go to Nashville for the draft, and I don't get to make that decision, but it might not be a bad idea.
I mean, Jon Gruden's already angling for the draft on the field. As much as he denies it, it's been very clear through all the moves that have happened since the Khalil Mack trade and through the play of this team on the field that they're focused on who they can acquire this offseason as opposed to what they can win this season. I mean, you don't have to say the word tanking to imply that they're definitely future-focused right now. And the 49ers are also obviously future-focused, but I think that when you're in their locker room, it is a different feel. I know Tim Kawakami wrote about it this week, that there still is kind of
and
that.
People didn't like that, calling the 1-7 49ers stable, but
it's
all relative.
Yeah, you
it's
saw
all
the
relative.
relativity today. And then in the locker room today, I think, from the 49ers perspective, this is a desert right now that they're crossing without Jimmy Garoppolo, without Jerick McKinnon.
Who needs Jimmy Garoppolo? You've got Nick Mullens. Come on.
You know what's really symbolic?
The best number 4 on the field tonight.
And funny, today's Nick Mullens Day, right? Officially, November 1st is Nick Mullens Day. Jimmy Garoppolo's birthday is November 2nd. And that's sandwiched in between the day that Jimmy Garoppolo arrived last year and Jimmy Garoppolo's birthday is Nick Mullens Day. So,
wow.
But there's a lot of poetic kind of parallels here for the 49ers.
I think Jalen Richard was a little bit disappointed in how good Nick Mullens did today because they had planned the jersey swap. And then he gets to Nick after the game. He's like, "Man, you got to keep that. It's your first win, your first touchdown.
That's funny, yeah.
I can't take your jersey." So he did not take Nick Mullens' jersey. He couldn't. It was too good of a performance.
And I mean, they'll probably play again if they both stay in the league here for a few more years, obviously, because these teams play once every 4 years. But this was the last Oakland-San Francisco game, and also kind of fitting. I looked up the rivalry because this was a huge blowout. I wanted to see what the biggest one was. The biggest blowout in the rivalry was the first ever Oakland-San Francisco game in 1970. 49ers 38, Raiders 7, a 31-point blowout. So it bookends it perfectly. This was a 31-point blowout to end it. So a lot of weird numbers and dates here coming through, but in the larger picture, I think anticlimactic, right? Just zoom out to what we expected when we saw the schedule for the first time this year. This was supposed to be two teams that were energized. It was supposed to be Jimmy Garoppolo against Derek Carr, coached by Jon Gruden. We obviously didn't get that. We got Nick Mullens performing very well on the other side with the 49ers out of the race, the Raiders obviously out of the race. So it was, in that regard, anticlimactic, and we did see that one fight in the stands. So that was about all we expected.
The best part of the night. I think that was probably the most entertaining part of the night. A guy in a Donald Penn jersey was throwing haymakers. A guy in a Marshawn Lynch jersey got thrown to the ground.
What jersey was the 49ers fan who clocked Marshawn Lynch wearing?
I didn't make that out. I know we had Marshawn Lynch and Donald Penn in there, and we're actually still waiting to try to confirm with Donald that it wasn't him. Yeah, I mean,
was sitting in section 131.
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? But until that, I don't know how much you walked around the parking lot earlier. It had seemed very tame here.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I came across a Raiders tailgate where they were blaring, "Why can't we be friends?" I mean, it was, and that's kind of it. Kind of felt like that out in the parking lot coming in. That and I kind of get it. I mean, how can you talk crap to the other team when you're just as bad? I mean, that's what made. I mean, this was supposed to be a fun night. I mean, I think it was good that they made. Obviously this is a bad game to end up being on primetime, but I still think it was a good idea that this was a Thursday night game, because I think anytime you have a situation where you have two teams playing each other where neither of them have to travel, where the road team can just take a bus down, those should always be Thursday night games whenever those teams play, because Thursday night travel for a road, Thursday night games are tough on everybody. Thursday night road games are tough on a visiting team.
Yeah.
So when you can have a Thursday night game like this where neither team has to travel, I support that wholeheartedly. So I as bad as this game was, I'm glad it was a Thursday night game, and especially for us because now we got a weekend off.
Yeah, now there's a lot of extra time to finally just sit back and watch some football, which I think is part of the fun, getting the perspective on the whole league, and especially in a year where neither the Raiders or the 49ers are going to make the playoffs, it is fun to zoom out a little bit. And I agree with you. And the whole Thursday night thing, I thought both defenses on the first drive, they came out today, and I was like, oh, yeah, this is a Thursday night game, because you could tell they're a little sluggish out of the game.
Terrible on that first drive. I mean, you're like, okay, yeah.
Until Colton Miller got hurt.
Yeah.
Really. That probably hurt the Raiders a lot. And I think, here's the thing, the Raiders might have come ready to play, ready to win, but they're on very, very thin ice motivationally. And as soon as one thing goes wrong, they're not ready to put up a lot of resiliency.
Nope.
And I think that Colton Miller injury might have been it, and the dam breaks.
Yeah. I mean, I asked Derek Carr after the game, and we'll play this. I played this earlier. That what do you want to see out of the team in the last 8 games of the season? Because obviously, the season's done. And his answer, as you guys heard earlier, was I thought it was pretty interesting. He talked about I want to see who's going to fight, who wants to be a part of this team, who wants to be here when we are able to get this thing turned around again, who wants to be a Raider. And I mean, right now, if you look around and ask that question, I don't, Derek's going to tell you, there are guys there that do, but we don't know right now how many there actually are. And so that is a pretty good question that they really need to answer. I mean, I've said for a while now that a big question that has to be answered for the rest of the season is Derek Carr part of that future? Is he the guy you're going to? And of course, that to me remains the most important question. But it is important for them to figure out who of these offensive linemen are going to be a part of the future. I'd ask a similar question to Colton Miller, and he gave kind of more of an answer about I want to start seeing execution. We're not executing, but cliche, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's what both these teams really need to figure out is who is going to be a part of the future. Who are you going to build around? And right now, I think if you're the Niners, they're a team that is still, they're not playing for something, but you can see a little bit. You can see that they have fight in them. Right now, we're not seeing a whole lot of fight out of the Raiders.
Well, the Niners are a step ahead in the whole plan, right? The Raiders are still tearing down as we speak. So, as you said, we don't know who's going to be around. I think with the 49ers, they tore down when Kyle Shanahan showed up last year. So they're a year ahead in the whole process of rebuilding the team as the coach sees fit. So the 49ers have those, young pieces who they hope that they'll be able to build around. Will some of those young pieces pan out? Well, we'll see. A big question mark, for example, is a guy who didn't play tonight in Reuben Foster. Is he going to be able to ever have a fully healthy shoulder? Because I think as we saw tonight, 49ers are better with Malcolm Smith at weak side linebacker than a one-armed Reuben Foster.
Yeah.
That was addition by subtraction. And quite frankly, that's an alarming kind of bigger picture thing that the 49ers are going to have to figure out, because you have to have Reuben Foster healthy and playing at 2017 levels for that to be a foundational piece. So the 49ers, though, they're at least at a point where they're pointing at certain guys and saying, okay, this guy's either going to be that piece or not. Whereas the Raiders, you don't know who those guys are. You know, Jared Cook, who's been one of their top performers, only 2 catches today, but over the season has been one of their top performers. He's a free agent, right, at the end of this year, so you don't even know if he's going to be around.
I don't think a guy like him, I mean, you would have no reason to resign here.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're a veteran that has options, that's not. Jon Gruden can talk all about all these guys that are calling and texting him, and he kind of post game tonight kind of amended that and said, well, you know, it's after games. A lot of guys come up and talk to me. They want to be, but guys that have options, I don't think a whole lot of guys with options are picking this team.
No, they're not. And so the point is that the Raiders are going to be at a let's start from scratch kind of spot, which is apparently what Jon Gruden wanted. I mean, he traded Khalil Mack away. You know, I think people are mildly surprised that Derek Carr is still on the team right now. It was obviously tougher to trade him with a contract, although it's not that hard to get out of anymore after a couple years. So if he doesn't want to go with Derek Carr, he actually doesn't really have to. It only penalize him, $7.5 million.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he wants to do, but the Raiders are still at a very much downward plummet right now in their teardown, and the 49ers are scratching and clawing to get back up, and they do still have a good vibe in the locker room. Jimmy Garoppolo, Jerick McKinnon were both in there. They could have gone home on Thursday night, and they were there congratulating guys. Jimmy's on his crutches. So, I mean, 2 kind of separate instances, and it's just too bad that the last Battle of the Bay was actually the worst primetime matchup in the history of the NFL. Combined winning percentage was like 133. But that's just the way it is.
That winning percentage went up for these teams now.
Yeah.
One team had to win. I
know a lot of people were tonight. So.
A lot of people were joking that it was going to be a tie. It should be a tie. This game was fit to be tied, but the Raiders couldn't hold up their end of the bargain.
No, yeah. One team was clearly better on this night. And there's the argument. I know Tim was getting in on it. We're going to write a little bit about this, about which team actually had the stronger roster. And from my perspective, it's just hard to tell at this point. There's so many question marks on both teams. The Raiders, again, going downhill, 49ers trying to go uphill, that only time will tell which coach, which GM is best at this building process, who's doing things right or wrong. We do know, though, that Jon Gruden has betrayed Oakland. Even if his plan works, it's not going to work in Oakland.
Yep.
And that's what took the luster out of this Battle of the Bay today.
Yeah, it was pretty sad for me that you've got 2 teams that are both in this market. And we know drawing at Levi Stadium has been a hell of a bitch. I mean, they can't fill this place up for the life of them. But this was the one game, you know, you're going to fill it up. I mean, it's Raiders, it's Niners, 2 teams in this market. How could you not? And
it's impossible to get in here. Like you said, the parking lot, too. One of the reasons the vibe is not because it's one-win teams. That's one of the reasons. But I think the big reason is Levi's is not Candlestick. It's not the Coliseum. You don't get the same vibe in the stadium. You don't get the same vibe in the parking lot.
Yep.
It just it doesn't have that soul, that character that the older buildings have, and that's an NFL-wide thing. And it's also, this is, in my opinion, compounded by the fact that it's just really hard to get to. Even the new NFL stadiums, a lot of those are in good locations. This is
they're
hard
at least
for anybody,
if they're hard to drive to, they're at least like in a downtown where you're not driving to them. And this one, there is public transportation here depending on where you live. But I mean, if you live, it's not the easiest place to get to. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up here with David. You guys can check out his podcast, No Breaks, our 49ers podcast with Matt Barrows and him. Check out his 49ers coverage, although since you are Raider fans, I bet you don't want to. But thanks a lot, David. All right, and at long last, now we bring on Vic Tafur. Vic, this is what everyone's been waiting for. We've
this is it.
Well, they've listened to me and David break it down. They've listened to a little Jon Gruden, a little Derek Carr, and when we didn't do a post-game podcast after Sunday's game against Indy, we put it to a vote. We let the readers decide, and it was a 56-44 vote that we do not do one. But the ones that were mad that we didn't, they said they need the soothing tones of Vic Tafur to help
Should
them.
I sing a little bit? I can sing a little bit. No, all right, no singing.
Um,
All right, so 1-7. This is definitely the new low point. Is it safe to say? I know.
But is it rock bottom?
No, it's not rock bottom. I think some people said it's like one of the worst losses in the history of the franchise. Like, that's true, because I think the Niners are not good. Niners are really bad, and they completely imposed their will, dominated the game. The score could have been much worse. They called the dogs off at some point. Derek Carr was sacked 7 times. McCarron sacked once. 8 sacks, more than the Raiders' defense has the entire season. They had 0 tonight, 2 quarterback hits, and just an awful night.
And they did it with Nick Mullens as the starting quarterback, a guy who had never taken an NFL snap before tonight.
Yeah, undrafted. Undrafted last year. I know a lot of Niners writers and fans have said that they had no chance to win, and I was like, you haven't seen this defense.
You got nervous for like 2 minutes at the start of the game.
I don't know if I was nervous, but I definitely the Raiders moved the ball pretty well at the start of the game.
Drive,
so I thought, you know what, it could be a high-scoring game. Then they had injuries to the O-line. Both Miller and Osemele kind of re-injured their knees at some point.
Parker didn't play well.
Parker got benched pretty much, came back in later. They brought in Ian Silberman, who was not good. Just the O-line was a mess, and they couldn't get the offense going. And at some point, Gruden pretty much said, he kind of waved the white flag. He said, you know what? At that point, we're coaching not to get Derek hurt. And so there wasn't anything really exciting offensively, and the defense just had no answer for anything. So just terrible. I mean, they're 1-7, 8 games left, and I don't know what positives anybody can glean from any of this.
In essence, Gruden kind of, I don't want to say he waved the white flag on the season. I mean, but basically, he was asked about, where do you go from here? What do you accomplish? And we played this clip earlier, and he basically started talking about health. We need to get healthy, and I mean, there's no talk about they got to string together some wins, get some momentum. It's just get healthy, and I mean that's kind of where this team's at. They want to hopefully suffer no major injuries and really just kind of play the season on through and look ahead to the 2019 draft with their 3 first-round picks.
And plus the salary cap. They have a lot of salary cap space, which he told Howie Long. People are texting him. They're dying to play for the Raiders. He's got all his salary cap space. They can get guys he really wants next year, which I don't think that really helps anything. I think the players on this team are already questioning him a little bit and have to question him more. He was asked about that. He's like, no, I'm not doing nice. I'm just kind of trying to build up excitement for the brand. So people want to get them excited about the Oakland Raiders, which if you watch this game, no one is going to be doing that. Just it's terrible. This is one of the worst teams. I've been doing this for 9 years, and I thought the team that was 0-10 was the worst. But this one could be worse. This one definitely is headed, and like I said, I'm not sure this is bottom. I think
they haven't even played the Chiefs yet.
Yeah, I mean that's frightening. And there's really no answers on defense. I mean, they have no pass rush. And then today, like guys who had played okay in the past, Leon Hall was good early in the season. Today he was bad. The safeties are having problems. The middle of the field's wide open. So like Gruden said, if you're this guy Nick Mullens who, whatever, he's athletic, he can throw the ball, but has no reason to come in and dominate the national TV. But if you have no pass rush and guys are wide open, Pierre Garçon was so open in that first touchdown. It's easy to play quarterback if that's what you're going against.
And, obviously everybody, we kill Reggie Nelson and people get upset when we kill Reggie Nelson. But, I mean, I'm starting to come around at least a little bit to the idea of what the hell else are they supposed to do? Because Eric Harris is not good. Marcus Gilchrist is not good.
No.
Carl Joseph, not good. They don't have any good safeties. I mean, you have to put somebody out there. And
I'll say this for Reggie. In a couple of running plays, he came flying in, made some hits.
Yeah.
I mean, if you made a list of guys you can say no doubt are trying really hard, I think he's on that list. Maybe he's not. Obviously, he's not what he once was. He's, I'm not going to say washed, but on the downward side of his career. But he's trying hard, and I'm not sure a lot of these guys are. I mean, Jonathan Hankins definitely was fired up tonight. Yeah. I think that I talked to Frosty Rucker and Clinton McDonald after the game. Those guys are trying hard. The veteran guys who've been there in this league for a while have some pride. But a lot of the guys in this team have mailed it in.
Yeah, I mean, and why wouldn't they? I mean, I know I asked Derek Carr, we played this clip earlier about, what's your realistic goals for the rest of this 2018 season. He showed a little fire in that answer where it's kind of, he wants to see who wants to fight. And one really interesting part of it is that he said, if we can build that trust. I mean, he's literally talking about that there needs to be groups of this team. They need to figure out who's part of this, who's going to be part of this next wave, who's going to be part of building this future, and start building that trust, which obviously tells you that right now there is not that trust in that locker room.
Yeah, no, it's not good. Just Derek's obviously a guy who's trying hard, and just I mean, Gruden was asked about. There's that one play that to me really sticks out was the touchdown run by Mostert or Mostert?
Raheem Mostert, 52-yard touchdown run.
And so he takes a ball around the right corner, and he runs by four guys. Four guys are kind of like get beat when he turns the corner. He sprints down the sideline. He beats four more guys. That's 8 players he's now run by. He slows down to cut inside. Then he goes back outside, turns around Marcus Gilchrist. That's 9 guys now. Back inside again, back outside again, and scores. And he's untouched. Not one player touched him on that run. And Jon Gruden, I asked him about that one play in particular. He says, you know what? Obviously, we're in the right coverage. We actually had the right call for that play. And so he said he was on the other side of the field. He couldn't really see what happened, but he's going to watch the tape. And tomorrow, to me, that's the most fascinating thing about tomorrow's press conference is what did he see on tape? Does he think his guys are still giving maximum effort? Because I don't. I don't think in that play alone you can see a handful of guys who don't really care if they got to him or not, if he scored or not, which is not good.
Yeah, and if you look at that play, who's down there 50 yards down the field helping lead that way into that touchdown? Mike McGlinchey, the Niners' first-round pick.
Damn Rod Woodson.
Damn Rod Woodson.
Damn that coin toss.
Oh,
bastard.
I mean, Colton Miller. I mean, it's a rough rookie year for him, and I know a lot of it's health related. And I talked to him a little bit after the game, and it's not easy for him. I mean, the knee is bothering him quite a bit, and he tried to go back in there, and then it just doesn't work. But
and I'll raise the question. So if the knee is obviously bugging him for a while, Assembly was gone for 3 weeks in the injury. We rehearsed it tonight. Why would those guys play again? If you have nothing to play for, you're terrible.
Who the hell do you have to put out there?
You want high draft picks. They're trading for draft picks. They're building for next year. Why would you play Colton Miller and Assembly the rest of the way? There's no reason. And then by extension,
at that point, Derek Carr.
Why are you playing Derek Carr if you got no one to protect him? So, again, I don't think we've hit bottom. I really don't, which is I know it's horrible to say after watching this game, but I think the worst is yet to come.
Yeah, because, I mean, at some point – if those guys can't stay healthy, because, I mean, they have no depth whatsoever on this offensive line. I mean, John Feliciano as a backup guard center is okay. He's solid. They have no backup tackles really worth talking about at all. They're terrible there. And so if you've got 2 guys, the one, your left tackle of the future, and, a guy in Assembly who has at times been your best offensive lineman, probably not this year has not been, but, I mean, if you can't go with those guys, I mean, and
even Gabe Jackson. Gabe Jackson did not play well tonight. Gabe Jackson got pushed back a lot tonight, which is he's one of the guys you're paying a lot of money to be a dominant player, and he hasn't been. So there are just so many problems, and there's so few playmakers. I mean, Jared Cook is your top playmaker in offense. He had 2 targets, I think, tonight. So I'm speechless. I can't imagine how I just fathom how bad it's gotten so quickly, and I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's not over yet. The downward spiral is still going.
And I mean, there's no really reason to know, is it going to end next year? Is it going to end? I mean, obviously, we know that this team is not going to be competitive really the rest of their time here in Oakland. And, if Jon Gruden said today he's going to build this into a championship franchise, I don't know. I have my doubts, but the pressure's on him now.
Plus, he's clearly miserable. He's clearly like people who think, he's tanking it. And this is not a conscious effort to tank. This is not his design. This was not the plan coming in. He wants to be more competitive. It definitely, you can watch him on the sidelines. He's in agony. The press conferences now every week have gotten. You can see he's kind of beaten down. Today, 2 weeks in a row now, he's kind of yelling at Gunther on the sidelines. Just things are falling apart, and we have 8 games. It's amazing to me. We have 8 games. We're halfway through the season. It feels like it should be over. Like, call it. Call the fight. We're done. But you can't call it. The referee's just watching. The referee's like, go back in there and fight, put your hands up. So it's not good.
Especially, I mean, the way it's trending. I think you can if you know you're in a rebuilding mode, you can handle that a little bit more if you're going out and playing games that, man, we fought hard. I mean, this Niners team is not very good, but they can point to at least, hey, we went and played the Packers on the road on Monday Night Football in Green Bay, and we're right there with them down to the end. That's a game you can build off of. You can say, hey, we played well on a big stage against a great team. What do you point to here? I mean, this team they're playing terrible. They're not playing fun, competitive games. I mean, you could argue that they were lucky to beat the Browns, and they could very easily be winless right now.
Yeah, no, it's not good. And like we said, I think the O-line injury is definitely, at some point, you have to be concerned about Derek Carr, his health the rest of the way, which is really all you have going for you right now if you're a Raider fan. You hope that Gruden and Carr click, and you see that connection going forward. But behind this offensive line, that's going to be hard to do. So let alone keep standing. So yeah, the guys can't believe there's 8 games left. I can't get over that.
8 more games of Doug Martin and Brandon LaFell
Doug Martin, God bless him. He's got some juice. And that was one thing Gruden was right about. Doug Martin's got a little bit left. I mean, the old line's kind of banged up. He still had 5 yards of carry tonight. I mean, had a nice big long catch. I mean, Doug Martin's not the problem. Just everything else is. They had no playmakers on the outside. I mean, Joey Nelson is he had that one nice game, but other than that, he's been invisible. I mean, I know Crabtree hasn't done much either, but I don't know.
And I think maybe one of the more depressing things is that on defense, Mo Hurst, P.J. Hall, Arden Key, those guys have been invisible. And those were 3 guys I think you at least pointed to that, okay, if you can start building that foundation there. I know PFF tweeted out some stuff on P.J. Hall this week where I think for the amount of snaps he has and the pressures or whatever, with 3 tackles and like 167 snaps on the year, he's basically been invisible. I mean, Mo Hurst it's flashed here and there. Yeah. Arden Key pretty much been invisible. That's been a big disappointment.
Yeah, it's not to ask those guys because there definitely is a big jump in speed and in power at this level. I think they definitely see in the highlights those guys are having trouble at both those things at times. And so, for Arden Key, I mean, when they drafted him, again, they said he's our number 3 pass rusher. And now he's the number 1 guy because Khalil Mack is gone. They don't play Bruce Irvin anymore because, I mean, like he's whatever for a lot of reasons, but I'm just so Arden Key's not your main guy, and he can't be your main guy. He can't. He's not seasoned enough. He doesn't have enough size. It's just, and again, going back to the whole thing, like if this was a master plan, if Gruden knew it was a major rebuild, we're going to tank this season. You don't sign 24 veteran guys and become the oldest team in the league.
Including one in Rashawn Melvin, who he's now made inactive 2 straight games.
Yes, Rashawn Melvin was one of the guys they were actually really excited about. Like
they signed him.
They
gave him a lot of money.
$4 million, and he can't get on the field for the worst defense in the league.
Yeah, I think that has issues other than
he's definitely in a doghouse, but I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just. I think he's one of your top 5 players on defense. Yeah. I mean, if I had to make, I haven't made a list top of my head. I think he'd probably be 4th or 5th.
Yeah, Daryl Worley. I
mean, I have no doubt next year he'll be somewhere else and he'll be good. Rashawn Melvin will have a good year next year somewhere else. So I just think I know Paul Gunther's going to say that the cupboard's bare and didn't have much to work with, but he obviously has not done a good job with this team. And there is some talent here. And the schemes are not working. The players don't know what they're doing. And if they have quit, if the effort is gone on that side of the ball, then he is to blame for that. If you lose your defense in terms of their will to compete and make a tackle on a 52-yard run where a guy curves in and out like 6 times, then that's on you.
In your mind, is there any reason that they should consider a midseason change here from Paul Gunther?
No, I think at this point – you gotta just survive. Like tonight, you wave the white flag and you just survive. You survive. You pray nobody gets hurt, and you just suffer through this. And then at the end of the year, I mean, I would imagine Mark Davis will ask Gruden about Paul Gunther, like, what the hell did that guy do this year? And then whatever Mark Davis or Gruden's answer is, Mark Davis, and we'll see. But I just don't know. I mean. We saw Mark Davis tonight. Mark Davis came down. He was right in front of us on our way to the locker room. Clearly miserable, clearly upset. He's not talking to the media, which makes sense. He's got all his sights on Vegas. And what's he going to say at this point? He gave Gruden a blank check. But he's miserable. I mean, it's like, so he's going to want some answers, or someone will have to take a fall for this. No one, the whole staff and front office won't get a pass if they finish 2-14. I'm not,
2-14 might be
I'm
optimistic.
giving them an extra win. I
Where?
realize that. I don't know where. I'm being nice. I'm in a good mood.
Who do they got next? The Colts?
Cardinals.
No, the Cardinals.
Cardinals
the
are
Chargers. The Chargers are next?
Chargers are next, then the Cardinals.
Cardinals.
They're
Cardinals
home against
could-
yeah.
I don't know.
Chargers are going to.
Yeah, they'll lose to the Chargers. That could be ugly. I don't know about the Colts. I mean, why do I keep
Cardinals.
saying the Colts?
Yeah,
The Cardinals,
I mean-
all these C teams, whatever.
I mean, at some point, you hope that maybe some team comes in flat and they're totally overconfident. And maybe you're at home. Maybe you find some pride somewhere. Maybe Doug Martin bust out for 220.
This guy in the Doug Martin, man.
Hey, I'm telling you, man. On my list of guys who are competing and trying, he's on my list.
Doug Martin.
I should make that list. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow.
It's a good story to write.
Nah, I'm not writing that story. I already got enough dirty looks in the locker room as it is. I got to watch myself.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up this week's episode of State of the Nation. And
If you're listening to this, man, I guess
pour me a nice tall one.
You are faithful. You are hardcore. I salute you. I guess just good luck getting through this year and good luck next year in the draft.
Hey, and shout out to Donald Penn for taking care of business out in the stands.
There was a great fight. The press box, like late in the game, was just miserable. Just watching this disaster. There was a huge fight, and so everyone's getting fired
It was
up.
right by where we're sitting,
And
too.
there was a guy wearing a Donald Penn jersey. I was like, "Hey, Donald Penn made it out to the game." But it wasn't Donald because he lost the fight. So I mean, I'm sure if it was Donald, he'd have been-
Marshawn really is the one who lost the fight.
Marshawn Lynch was also in the stands. Not really, but he got knocked out.
The
so
guy in the Marshawn jersey got
there was
knocked about 2 or 3
there was
rows
one
back.
big fight that we saw. It was pretty subdued. I think most. Again, both teams stink. So are fans gonna be really that excited, like and kind of talking a lot of smack in the parking lot? I mean, you can't. Like,
You got no ammo.
and then now maybe afterwards, and Niner fans, I'm sure. Were
Oh,
like,
yeah. And there might have been some fights post.
Yeah, we owned you guys. We destroyed you.
All right, guys. Well, we will talk to you again next week.
Peace.